On June 20th, Abbey produced the eighth consecutive fortnightly edition of the year. Its front page article condemning both materialistic family life and false renunciation of family life. It had been almost 2 years exactly since he had left home and taken to the Vanaprastha order, and his comments on on family life seemed autobiographical as well as scriptural. He quoted a statement by Prahlada Maharaja from Srimad Bhagavatam: "Persons who are always disturbed in mind with cares and anxieties of household affairs may off the quit off the place which is the black hole temporary abode, family life, to kill oneself and take shelter unto the lotus feet of the personality of Godhead by entering into the forest." And he admitted the management of a family is more difficult than that of an empire. But trying to avoid family life by living in the jungle without the real spirit of renunciation was monkey renunciation. In the jungle, there were many monkeys who lived naked, ate fruits, and kept female companions. The real remedy lies in the act of accepting the service of the lotus feet of the Lord. That makes one free from all cares and anxieties of life. That makes one able to see Godhead always and everywhere. Real renounced life, therefore, was possible without going to the forest. Even if one remained in the dress of a householder, he could be freed from cares and anxieties by engaging himself in devotional service. On September 1st, US President Eisenhower condemned the Soviet secret testing of a nuclear bomb equal to 1 million tons of TNT and scoffed at the Soviets' claim for peace. In the Mideast, Egypt's Nasser nationalized the operation of the Suez Canal, causing an international crisis. On September 20th, 81 nations met at the UN to form a new international agency to help tame the atom for peaceful purposes. Abby saw some of the headlines in her talk, The Latest News, from gentlemen he visited. He frankly told them that without Krishna consciousness, the promises of cooperation by the politicians were all phantasmagorical. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati had said that if only one soul could be turned into a pure devotee, his mission would be a success. Yet sometimes Abby became overwhelmed when he thought of how small he was, how much work to be how much work had to be done on behalf of Krishna, and how difficult it was to convince even one conditional soul. Chapter 9, A Resident of Vrindavana. I was sitting alone in Vrindavana writing. My god brother insisted to me, Bhaktivedanta Prabhu, you must do it. Without accepting the renounced order of life, nobody can become a preacher. So he insisted. Not he insisted. Practically, my spiritual master insisted. He wanted me to become a preacher, so he forced me through this, god brother. You accept, so unwillingly I accepted. Srila Prabupada. The passenger cars behind the locomotive moved forward almost silently, thumping a slow rhythm over the tracks. The train pulled out at the station, past freight yards, a neighborhood of run-down tenants, the old Delhi fort, the garbage dump at Nizamuddin, with its hundreds of crows and vultures flying overhead, and then past a marble-domed red sandstone mosque, seated in a third-class compartment, his luggage stored beneath his seat. We could see factory workers walking near the tracks, carrying their lunches in metal tiffins, and then the factories, surrounded by huts of mud and straw. He passed the thatched roofs and tarpaulin tents, the cow dung fires that smoked in the morning air. The tall stacks of Indraprastha electrical powerhouse spewed out a different smoke. The sooty black clouds poured back from the locomotive. He saw red and violet wildflowers blooming from bramble bushes at trackside, and beyond he saw the road to Mathura with its border of fruitless kikar trees. It was the it was the morning train to Agra, and there were few passengers. Abi would be riding as far as Mathura and then traveling to Tanga to Vrindavana. He had ridden widely the Indian Railway, especially in the 1920s, 30s, and 40s, when he had traveled on business to Bengal, Punjab, Uttar Pradesh, Maharashtra, and Andhra Pradesh. He had been to Vrindavana several times in his childhood reveries over the train timetables. It had been the first place he had thought of visiting. His first visit in 1925 had been but a brief pilgrimage while he had been in nearby Agra on business. Then in 1932, Sri Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati had been in Vrindavana on parikrama. That had been a memorable visit. Abby had heard him speak in Koshi, and Sri Bhaktisiddhanta had marked him. He likes to hear. And then at Radhakunda, 3 years later, he had been with his spiritual master again, but he had never gone like this, to live there. Dressed in a simple white dhoti, his hand in his bead bag, fingering his japa beads, he looked out the window quietly chanting the holy name. The train passed through the dense thickets of the train passed through the dense thickets of Faridabad and into agricultural fields with their interspersed patches of wheat, dal, and sugarcane, beginning at trackside and stretching for half-mile to the dry, uncultivated land that continued as far as the eye could see. The train sped faster. Rural villages passed the window, an hour out of Delhi. The land was mostly flat and open, dotted with small villages. Occasionally he would glimpse a striking old temple, but mostly it was the land, now barren with few palm trees, now cultivated with irrigated fields under the expanse of blue sky and blazing sun. For a long time Abi had wanted to take shelter in Vrindavana, and now there was no obstacle. His purpose remained the same. He would write back to Godhead and deliver it to the printer in Delhi fortnightly. As long as he could afford to travel, he would return to Delhi to distribute back to Godhead, but he would live in the shelter of Vrindavana. He had in mind the room in Vamsi Gopalaji temple near Keshigata, a rooftop room that commanded a view of almost all of Vrindavana. And since his 1953 visit from Jhansi, he had kept in touch with the temple manager. In moving to Vrindavana, Abi was following his predecessor's spiritual masters, Sri Bhakti Saraswati and Bhakti Vinoda Thakura, had their house at Radhakunda and had preached in Vrindavana, Gwadakeshwara. Dasa Babaji, Jagannath Dasa Babaji, Visvanatha Chakravarti, and Narottama Dasa Thakur had lived either in Vrindavana or in Navadvipa, near the birthplace of Lord Chaitanya.